When I was young, people used to laugh at me because they thought it was lame to see a black kid in love with trains. But that was then, the people respect me now. I turned my passion into a paycheck when I became a conductor.
When you levitate to a whole nother dimension, that's pure elevation.
Clear signal, high ball. You're not just watching, you riding the throttle notcher. Where the rails run wild and the stories run deep. You're not just watching, you riding the throttle notcher. Where the midnight train to Georgia wake you out of your sleep. Two diesels painted white and black with 100 stacks. Shake the grounds of your house if you live right by the track. Engineer got his hands on the throttle. Your package shit today and we'll get it to you tomorrow. Ain't no signals here, this is dark territory. It's been this way, 16 engines had their glory. And when you hear the sound of the gates coming down, please stay out my way where I'm blazing through town. At a mile a minute, don't have no time to be wasting. Trying to reach the destination with no hesitation. Town after town, crossing bridges and going through tunnels. Them night trains is well known for making your silence rumble. So grab your grip and come along. We can't leave without you because tonight you not just watching, you ride with the throttle notches. What's going on, ladies and gentlemen? This is Donnie, the train man himself, coming to y'all with episode number 4 of Throttle Notches. I got my man, Mr. Brian Smith, Amtrak Locomotive Engineer, in the building.
What's up?
Hey man, how you doing today, brother? How's life treating you?
Good, man. Good. How about you?
Hey man, it's another day in paradise. You know, this is the humble beginnings of Throttle Notches, and just taking it one interview at a time, man.
That's what's up, man. I respect that.
Okay. So let everybody know, give them a little background about yourself, brother.
Okay. I'm Brian Smith. I'm 38. I am a locomotive engineer for Amtrak currently. I started railroading at Union Pacific as a conductor, RCO, and then I went to Amtrak and then left Amtrak briefly, went to CSX back during 2020, and liked Amtrak. Back to Amtrak. I've worked all the way from California, working the surfliners in Los Angeles, to working the Crescent and Meridian, to now working the Mardi Gras down in Mobile. And in freight, I've gone everywhere from Roseville, Reno, Oakland, all the way down to Bakersfield and West Colton, California.
Okay. So you went from Union Pacific to Amtrak, left Amtrak briefly to CSX, and left CSX and decided to come back to Amtrak.
Right.
Okay. Pretty little extensive career. So first and foremost, the question I got to ask everybody: are you a rail fan who became a railroader?
I am. I didn't do it in the sense of I didn't. I don't go to the side of the tracks to take pictures of train. And the only reason is that is because honestly, growing up in Atlanta, there were, well, honestly, a lot of other things. A lot of train stuff around there. But I never ever saw rail fans up until I actually became a railroader. That I realized that people take pictures. I used to be one of the ones. I like to Google stuff, old trains, talk to people who have rode different stuff. Like I'm super fascinated in the history, so I'm more on that side of it.
Okay. So you are more so into history versus current railroading.
Yeah, more or less. Yeah.
Okay, cool. So man, talk to us. What was the interview process like as far as going into Union Pacific? Because I know Union Pacific, NS, CSX, all class ones and even short lines kind of have the same process, but it may be a little different.
Yeah, it was. UP was pretty straightforward. They asked pretty much the same questions I actually got asked at CSX. They just wanted to know if they. I feel like they have like three major things that they look for. I've watched a lot of YouTube videos getting ready for my interview, and it seems like the questions are more geared towards like, what are your ultimate goals? Basically, they just don't want you to get there, get paid one time, and bounce. That's really what they're looking for. They were straightforward. They wanted honesty and warm bodies, like any other freight. That's pretty much it. But yeah, they weren't so bad. I mean, just being 100% honest on all the questions they asked, they didn't ask anything too strenuous, at least not to me.
All right. All right. So what was it like working for the UP?
I liked it. It really wasn't bad. I hired in a pretty good place. I hired in Roseville, California. Even though I mainly worked out of Bakersfield because I didn't really have a lot of seniority to hold Rose. Well, actually, I could have held Roseville, but it was cheaper to live in Bakersfield than it was Roseville. And I had actually relocated from Birmingham, Alabama, out to Roseville, which is basically
Oh,
Sacramento, to work. So I mean, it was I was working pretty much with nothing when I first started, man. I didn't. I actually started out there. I was for the most part homeless, but I quickly got it together and made a way. But I enjoyed it. I got to see a lot of stuff. I got to go a lot of places like going from Roseville to Sparks, which is Reno. You get to go over Donner's Pass, and you get to
mm,
go over an area that's way above where the highway is. Because once I-80's closed, the rails are always open, or at least they try to keep them open. So like Amtrak and all that. But there are parts up there. The only way you'll see that is if you work for the railroad, or you know, if you you got to be hiking really high. I mean, it
mm,
used to be beautiful scenery out there. I got to work the Feather River Canyon, old Western Pacific route. It was another way they used to take us down from Reno, and it was really cool because no passenger trains run through there unless you live in that area. And even in some of those areas, you just don't see if you're not, on the train. And I mean, it was magical. Same thing along the coast. There's a little area. I saw that more on the Amtrak side though, but it's UP's track, so they do run trains out there from can't think. I think it's Narlon. Either way, the area is going up to San Luis Obispo, and the only way you'll see that is if you work for NASA, SpaceX, or the railroad. That is the only way you'll see at least that 20 something miles, I believe, of the country. Other than that, it's in the back of a military base and where they used to land a space shuttle, like right at the end of the runway out there. It was beautiful.
cool, man. That's just so dope, man. Um, so you say you had to relocate from Birmingham all the way to California, hey, right?
Yeah,
Man, I know that was a huge culture shock.
it was. It was actually kind of hard too because I had just had my youngest daughter. I got hired. Well, I started class September 11th, 2017, 17, and Abby was born in March 2017. And going from the way Southerners do things, and leaving my family and going out there to do it, it's like nothing wrong with Californians. I mean, to me, they're no BS enough to be like New Yorkers, but polite enough to be comparable to Southerners.
Mm-hmm.
And they are. When I went there, like I remember telling people like, hi, how are you? And they would look at me like, I'm sorry, do I know you? Like, well, no, it's just a common courtesy. And some of them were even curious. One asked me one day, like, hi, how are you? Do people ever answer you? I said, what do you mean? He's like, you say, how are you? No, not really good. Let me tell you. I said, well, no, it's more of again, a common courtesy. I mean, I'm not going to say I don't care how you feel, but, it's just something you say. You just introduce yourself, and the culture out there is just way, way different. But the people are really, really nice, though.
Oh, okay,
They just have
okay.
their own unique way of doing things.
Yeah, I bet it is a culture shock leaving the South going over to the West Coast.
Yeah, it was. I remember since I was a little boy, my grandparents were like, I had both my parents in my life. But my grandparents used to instill a lot of old Southern values, like holding the door open for women when they come in and out. And I went on a date out there, and I remember walking to the car first and opening the door, and she was like, what are you doing? I said, well, I'm holding the door for you. She was like, am I driving? I was like, well, no, I just hold the door for you. What, you some kind of gentleman or something? And I thought she was being funny, but she was really serious. I can open my own door. I was like, hey, I understand. Respect. But I still
Yeah.
did it for the rest of the night. I don't think I ever got a phone call back from that girl for that exact reason. But it
Well,
is.
well, man, it's called Southern hospitality for a reason. This is what we learned growing up down south, and it goes a long way with us for the rest of our life. And like you say, even when you go to New York or other places, you greet somebody, they look at you like you're crazy because they're not expecting that based on their culture.
True. Honestly, since 2020 and so many people are moving, I'm starting to feel like it's more of a dying culture. Like coming from Atlanta, Atlanta was always known for Southern hospitality. I was reading, I think it was Forbes and some other magazine was talking about this recently online, but they were saying that local hostilities, like in Atlanta specifically, Georgia as a state as a whole, is just gotten ridiculous where people don't even want to know. Like if you like, oh, I came from XYZ. Well, on with you. Like it's not like how it once was. But with local culture changing so much because you have so many people coming from one place coming in and instead of assimilating, they want to just make it their own. It just kind of it don't really work so well. People, I believe, historically believe that Southern accent, a lot of it associated with Hicks or something like that, and they
Mm.
kind of think that a lot of people just aren't very smart because of that. It's kind of a hard thing. It's like you would immediately associate it with being country. You know what I mean? And they're not. We're not. But that's just how the people think about it.
I mean, especially
Some.
with not to be throw shade or anything like that, but Carolina Panthers wide receiver Xavier Legette. You see the criticism that he get from his heavy Southern accent down from being down here in South Carolina. So I can understand exactly where you're coming from when you say that.
Well, there's remember that movie Friday Night Lights. It's based off a true story. The quarterback Mike Winchell,
Mm-hmm.
he had a here from Texas, Permian, Texas. He had a deep, deep, deep Southern accent. Boy, it sounded country than an ear of corn. But he was saying, now he was super smart. Dude was a genius, an actual genius. And he got a scholarship offer to go to Harvard to play football. And he was interviewed for it and was written off immediately as just a country hick. They figured he probably cheated and he couldn't have been. So he did not get the scholarship or the position. But years later, I forgot which college he ended up going to, but he still had Ivy League ambitions and he did get it. And it went on to do great things. But the person who interviewed him said in later on years, like, well, we kind of just figured that country accent, there's no way, he was going to be intelligent enough to be here, just purely based off the way he talked. And I've run into a lot of people over the years like that. Like I had to get rid of my accent when I moved to California. They used to tease me relentlessly because I was so country, well, sounding anyway.
Mm-mm-mm-mm. Can't even be yourself out here in the world.
Yeah, I mean, it was all in good humor, but still, I was like, nah, I got to ditch this immediately.
I understand that, man. So, so you leave Birmingham. Is it Birmingham?
Yeah,
You leave
Inslee,
Birmingham to
Birmingham.
go. You leave Birmingham to go work for UP in California. And why did you leave UP to go to Amtrak initially? Were you already locomotive engineer certified at that point?
No, I was a conductor at that point. I had well, yeah, I was. Well, see, my issue was that I had um I had gotten injured earlier that year. Somebody had attacked me while I was walking my train. Some kids, they just threw rocks at me, but messed me up kind of bad, scratched my cornea. I mean, it was pretty bad, and UP kind of treated me like I was the bad guy when that happened. I mean, in the end, I mean, I got some apologies from at least the local management, but I was ready to go. I mean, they tried to starve me out. They had hired somebody to watch my girlfriend's house to see if I was had a concussion or not. I mean, it was just insane. But that was like at the very end of my experience with them, and it wasn't like a lengthy process. It was just like it happened all of a sudden, and just like that, it was gone. And I didn't see much of I missed my children. Like I said, I grew up in Atlanta. My kids still lived in the South. My oldest two children lived in Atlanta. My baby girl lived in Birmingham, and my kids were getting older. I needed to get back home, and UP technically ends, and at that time they were ending as far as getting close to home was Memphis. And I had learned from friends that I had met on Facebook, and I was doing what you do with these YouTube videos. I was had made a lot of friends through those. Some worked for UP, some were aspiring to work for UP, and I had learned that they paid different in different areas. So in California, I was making really good money, but when I looked at how much they paid those for the same job in like Memphis or Louisiana, it just wasn't on par to what I was accustomed to making. I mean, I'm sure with cost of living, it probably balanced out, but I just, when you've done a job for so much money, it's really hard to do the job for less money,
Right.
So I saw that Amtrak was hiring, and I figured I'd just roll the dice. I figured worst they could tell me was no. I've always wanted to, and I knew that they had nationwide seniority. And at the time, I thought the train does run to Atlanta, so I thought Atlanta would be a crew base. I learned when I got down to Amtrak that that is not the case. That Atlanta's just a layover point where Charlotte and Meridian crews we just stay overnight and pass the train on. And I still held on to hope for years that they would open up a crew base, and I still do. I feel like maybe one day they will, with all the things happening and then wanting to have trains go to Savannah and whatnot. Hopefully they will.
Oh, okay, okay. So, so basically, in other words, you're saying that you would have been working for Union Pacific over in Memphis, Tennessee, but you was going to initially take a pay cut based on, I guess, cost of living.
Well, different agreements. Out there in
Oh,
California, they have Western Lines agreement, and I don't remember what the rest of the country has, but there, like I remember when I was a conductor, a guarantee was $4,800 twice a month. Normally, you made more than that because you worked enough to do it, but your guarantee was 4,800. I had a friend that got hired out of Avondale, Louisiana, or he worked out there. I don't know if he just worked out of there, and he was telling me his conductor pay was 3,600 for the guarantee, which was in California. That was Switchman's guarantee at the time. I mean, it's changed since for both. But I remember thinking like 3,600. That's what I get paid to work the yard. He's getting paid that to work the road. But I mean, now that I live down in the South, I mean, I haven't lived in that area, but I could see honestly, comparable wise, it's still living above the average. I'd imagine. I mean, I'm pretty sure those guys may or may not disagree because I mean, everybody lives their life the way they want. But that did not resonate well with me because I mean, you go from making that much money a pay period to making nowhere near that much money in a pay period, or I'd imagine. For all I know, they really could have been making around the same after, taxes, whatever. But and with freight, the work comes and goes. So sometimes it's a lot of it, sometimes it ain't. And I couldn't roll the dice on that. Plus I knew Amtrak paid the same no matter where you go. Different agreements for some things, but the pay itself stays the same no matter where you go.
I mean, definitely when you're thinking about going from California to Memphis, Tennessee, and that pay cut, that's actually like $1,000 difference on the guarantee.
Well, it's funny you say that because when I came to Amtrak down here, when I transferred from LA to Meridian, I met a CSX engineer. I had actually met him briefly when I was at CSX. He was furloughed at the time from Amtrak because of COVID. And he came to say hello to some friends. He was already hired, but COVID happened and he had to wait. And I got to talking to him. He was telling me how much he made at the time as an engineer at CSX. And I was like, are you serious? Like, man, he was like, yeah, it was a pay increase for me to come to Amtrak. And I was like, when I left UP and came to Amtrak, I can't tell you how many days I thought, man, this sucks. Because at the time, the training scale pay was only like $25. It's way better now, but at the time, it was just $25. And I was like, and living in LA, it was hard. If my girlfriend at the time didn't make a lot of money, like we lived together, if she didn't make a lot of money, I don't know how that would have worked out. But it, by the time I got finished with training and marked up, everything started to come together. Now it's not like that. I mean, all the railroads got that new contracts and from my understanding, it got better. Even when I was at CSX, I've been told that the contract they got after I left was much better than what they had before, because you came after I did. Because I remember when you went to the short line and I remember I wrote you, I was like, hey man, you were saying you had got hired on and you were standing next to an engine. And I was like, hey, you should come to one of the big guys, man. Go and establish your seniority. And your response was like, You said, I ain't worried about that crap right now. I was like,
Man, honestly,
oh,
man, because at that point in time, man, I was still learning, because
right,
originally, like we already know, I originally started out with Norfolk Southern, and I went down to
right.
McDonough training facility and got flunked out the second day because I failed the hang test all three times. I went
Oh,
back
okay.
to I went back to my job that I had before I left to go to NS, and then I left them to go work at International Paper, which is a paper mill down here in Eastover, South Carolina, now named Savamo. They was
Mhm.
being served by rail serve, which is a switch operation. So I went to go work rail serve for about 4 months to see if I could get a hang of it and get some type of training, and it was pretty decent. But um, the thing about them was, ironically, I left because I was kind of being taught some bad habits. And I didn't want to mess up myself and the opportunity to be able to work for an actual short line or a class one. So I did what I felt was necessary at that point in time. I found out that the short line, as a matter of fact, LNC, I found out that they was hiring, and I went in, put in an application, and voila, I got hired in. I had an interview. I got hired on the spot, and at that point in time, it was about learning, being better than what I was at, being better and being taught better than what I was at that switch operation. Had I
Right on.
honestly, do I regret leaving the short line to go to CSX? Yes and no. I'm not gonna say I regret. At that
Hmm.
point in time, it served the purpose that it needed to serve.
Okay.
But now, because of course, I'm run off. Um, do I wish I would have stayed there? Eh, probably more 50-50 leaning towards yes, because I probably would have been in the seat right about now as an engineer, or at least
Yeah,
in a
they
bit
put
of
a lot of
training.
people in the seat out there real fast. Like, I'm not real fast like that, but I mean, like, after I left, I hired with them in like February 2nd, 2021, and left them in April 2021. But I know after I left, because I knew I wanted to be an engineer again, and they had not run an engineer class in quite some years, the guys were telling me. And I was like, well, I don't want to wait. Like, I'm going to go back to the seat. When Amtrak said, hey, you know, 2020 is over, things are getting better, you want to come back? And I was like, man, I'm going to be on the first thing smoking. And I did. And I felt bad because the people at CSX that I met, I didn't have a single bad experience. Well, not really. I mean, and the micromanaging sorry, was pretty hardcore at the time. Oops, sorry. There we go. Was a little hardcore at the time, but the managers were still nice, at least because I mean I was new, so they were nice to me because I was new.
Right.
But I ended up getting a friend of mine hired. He wrote me on Facebook like, man, I love looking at your training videos and pictures, man. I want to get into that. Me and him went to high school together. We were in the army together. Like, this would be a pretty good opportunity. So, he applied, he got hired, and I don't know how long Robert was on the ground. Maybe a year. I think it was a little bit shy of a year, but he's been an engineer out of Atlanta ever since. I mean, with no chance of going back to the ground anytime soon. At least last I spoke to him, he was still in the seat. And like after him, like everybody that hired with me, was only three of us that went to Atlanta. None of us stayed,
Mhm.
but the class just behind us, some of them stayed, and all of them are engineers now. Every single one of them, and they were at least 3, 4 classes before him. So to me at the time, that seemed like business was picking up for CSX, at least in Atlanta. I mean, I don't know about now because down here in Mobile, we were using the CSX yard as our crew base till we got ours squared away, and we would listen to the guys a lot, and they would talk about how furloughs, regular freight stuff, and that general mood down there at the time was not very motivated on the outlook. I'm thinking probably different now. I see a lot more trains now than I did, the beginning of this year. So, I mean, those guys definitely take care of business down there. They're good railroaders for sure.
Okay. Well, see, of course, I'm CSX, and like how you say, the people was nice to you or whatnot with the ones that you all did deal with that was at CSX. I personally, I don't have no quarrels with the company. They did right by me. I just screwed up.
No, the companies are typically, their goal is to, provide good service for their customers. I mean, I'm sure just like with any company in the industry, they want to do right by the employees, but realistically, the people that pay you are the ones that are more important. That's just the way the world works. I mean, I think my biggest gripe during CSX, I mean, the CSX 2020, everybody had to wear that mask. And I remember going in the crew room to eat lunch. It was three of us in there, uh, engineer, conductor, TJ, the one I introduced you to the other day. He was my instructor, and he was in there, and we were getting ready to eat, and I had just warmed up my food, and I think I took like one bite, and they opened the door and was like, they asked to watch you guys on the camera up there, so between bites, put your mask on. And we're like, what? Then everybody just left and went to their car. So I was the only one left. So I was like, well, I ain't got to put my mask on since everybody else left. And I was like, that was just too much to me. Like, put your mask, like, bite, mask, bite. That was just too much. Like, But I mean, ultimately, the work wasn't bad. I mean, I'm big now. I mean, I was a big guy when I was a freight conductor at UP too, but I'm bigger now than I was then. But we use brake sticks out there on the UP. I think CSX does now, but when I was there, that was against the rules, and it's not flat. And where their yard is very, mountainous. And guys were telling me, like, I remember my last day, the day that I was like, I'm out of here. Amtrak had called me and told me I could come back. It was 2 weeks. So I said, okay, I'm going back to California in 2 weeks. And I got to work that morning. I was going to tell the yardmaster I was about to start working the road. And a lightning, like, went through the sky. Like, it was a big storm coming. And the yardmaster was outside, and he's like, I feel for you. I said, why? That's 30 handbrakes on that thing. You got to climb up each one, and that rain is coming. I looked at that. I looked at the sky. I looked at him. I said, you know what, man? I quit. And he was like, what? I said, I quit. And I was like, Amtrak called me back anyway. Here's my radio. It's my badge. Well, hold on, man. Hold on. Well, we'll get you some help. Don't quit, But I was like, y'all believe in doing everything the hard way. I mean, it was climbing, which is good. It's not like my fat self can't afford to, like, lose some weight. And I was definitely losing weight doing that. But I'm like, I had learned from UP, which they were calling it bad habits. Like when I was at the Ready Center, when everybody has to put the EOT on, everybody was struggling, everyone. So when it was my time, I laid in the center of the gauge, hooked them, put it up, wind it up, done. And then the instructor was like, wrong. I said, what was wrong? It is on. He was like, you didn't do it the way we taught you. We ain't the other railroads. I said, well, the other railroad didn't teach me this. I just learned that it's easier on your back to do it this way. I was like, you see how everybody is struggling trying to get it done? You're not struggling. You're just setting it up and it's already up. But I did it their way, and he was all right. That's good. And he talked to me after class about bringing that UP crap there. He's like, don't do that. Don't confuse the new guys. So I was like, okay. He's like, when you get out of training, do it any way you want, but while you in here, do it our way. And I respect that. That's what they decide is the best. I think in the future that's going to get them a lot of lawsuits from back injuries, but that's what they want. That's what we'll do, Because I mean, UP. Well, they didn't do it that way. Oh, yeah, they did. That's the way they showed us. Like I said, you get out there, you learn easier ways to do stuff. You do it their way while you're in training, like any other job. Do it the way they want you to do, then do it another way as long as it's safe. Don't hurt yourself. Just do it, what makes it easier.
Okay, good. Okay. So, man, what was how hard was it transitioning from being a freight conductor to being a passenger conductor?
Well, I never was a passenger conductor. I went to Amtrak as an engineer. I've met a few guys that have done it, and they love it. I mean, passenger conductors, their roles are a little bit different because, they deal with people, too. Now, don't get me wrong. If something happens to that train, they are responsible, and I've been blessed that majority of the conductors I have worked with, they know their craft, they work very well, and the environment is much nicer because well, we serve people, so you have to be nicer. And I mean, so if they need help, they ask for help. If they want to know something, and vice versa. It's more of a team aspect in passenger, from my experience. I mean, I know a lot of people that say different. I mean, I've run into conductors I don't like too, and engineers I don't like as well. But I mean, it's easier to get through the day. Like for me, the general my biggest problem was dealing with the culture change. Like UP, you're used to fighting for your job. You mess up or something happens, you're ready to like geared up to like, let's get this done, let's get this argument over with because I'm right. And I remember I did that. I think my first, they used to have student meetings for the engineers, and you would come in one day a month where y'all would, pretty much they see what you learned and they would talk. You guys could share experiences to help each other out. And the manager had asked a question, and I didn't like the question. I can't remember what he asked me, but I was geared up for it. I mean, whatever he said, I got smart with him, and all the other engineers got real quiet and we're looking at each other. And I'm like, why are y'all so scared? So he has to talk to me in the hallway. And he was like, dude, you're not in freight anymore. You do not have to fight for everything. We are not here to fire you, man. It costs too much to train you. Relax, learn your job, get out there, run trains, brother. They just trains. And it took me a while, but that mentality did finally go away. But it took me a while, because I think one of I can't remember that big idiot's name, but he had told me, he was like, man, he looked like Wreck-It Ralph, like little at the cartoon. I could not stand that dude. If I was the manager, I would have fired you. I was like, you're like 3 seconds in seniority higher than me. Out of here. It wouldn't benefit you at all to see me go. So I mean, but don't get me wrong, the guy's a big idiot, but he is a very good engineer. I'll give him that.
Okay, okay. So initially, what you're saying, in other words, is coming from a freight railroad to Amtrak. Amtrak initially treated you better and kind of took you in a little more.
Yeah, but you know what? It's just difference in how they do things. I mean, there were engineers and conductors at UP I met that were extremely nice. I can honestly say, out of all the people I met there, 98% of them at UP were really good and helpful. Even the ones that didn't like you would still help you. I mean, they may not like you as an individual, but they don't want to see you fail either. And I mean, at Amtrak, they're more, they pride themselves on their appearance. So they really do work very hard to make sure that you pretty much, I guess, respect the values that they have and they can ensure those values within you. And I mean, they are, from my experience, they were a lot more helpful at the beginning. I mean, they really were understanding. You could call your managers if you had questions. I mean, I got that at UP too, but you had more than one avenue to go down to find out something. Engineers who would work together to figure things. I mean, they are more accommodating. Like I said, it's about appearance, and they are a face, and therefore it's not just an image. I mean, like I said, from my experience, I've been blessed that the people I worked with always wanted to help. You know what I mean? Very rarely did I run into somebody that didn't. Maybe the occasional one or two, but and even they, in their own weird way, still were, helpful. So they were more approachable than most. I mean, they're like any other company. Don't get me wrong; they have their own dark side, I'm sure, but they are more accommodating, my honest opinion, than the other two railroads I've had to work for.
All right, cool. So I know earlier we was talking about you had your own small little issue at UP where you was known for posting TikTok videos about the railroad, basically kind of like I guess not necessarily training videos or anything of that nature. You were just very informative, and you ran into some issues, not necessarily with the UP higher ups, but with your coworkers.
Yeah, I had a lot of people got hired and would come up to me like, "I saw your video, dude. You're the reason I applied, man. Thank you so much for telling me about it." I mean, it was really good to the point where, I mean, I never brought my camera out there. I always did it in my hotel room, or I was explaining to them like the weeks, especially in training. I was like week 1 through, I can't remember how many weeks their training was, but I did one each week. And the company, I mean, people do videos all the time about them. They could care less. UP could care less about that, but I was told later that, they asked me about them. They told me they were showing people in their interviews. Like, they showed me a video from, like I said, I hired in Roseville. They were showing people in uh, Utah and in Washington State, Texas, like everyone. They're like, "Have you guys seen this guy's videos?" And like, how many people have? And 90% of the room will raise their hand, like, "Yeah, watch this guy's videos. He'll tell you all about the train." I mean, it made me feel great, but a lot of my coworkers were watching it because I did spice in, like, 'cause people would ask me questions about home life, etc., and I would spice in things like I missed my child. And some of my coworkers, they didn't like that I was doing these videos. They would make fun of me on the radio, like get on the radio and call something, or I started calling me YouTube, which I cared less. Like I said, growing up in Georgia, I've been called worse things than phone or YouTube. But some of them would make fun of me. They would leave nasty comments in my emails or on YouTube about my videos. It got to the point, one day I just got into it with one of the guys in one of the vans. He was trying to get a reaction. He wanted me to fight him, and I wouldn't do it. Like I said, he tried a lot of different ways. I mean, he crossed the line. He went the way of race, and a couple other guys in there kind of shut him down. And ultimately, I found out years later the company fired him for some of those racial comments that he was making. They didn't find too funny, and they let him go. But and I'm pretty sure if he finds this video, he's gonna probably comment on this because he did for years. But I took all my videos down, and just I was tired of it. Guys harassed me about my personal life and being funny about it. And at the time, I was really kind of hurting because I missed my kids. I really did. I didn't have any family in California. I didn't know anyone, and it was rough, and those guys just used every opportunity they could to make fun of me. And I just, like I said, it was never the management. The management could care less. People do that, do videos all the time. But for every bad person I met out there, I met at least 5 or 6 good ones. To this day, I'm all the way down here. I transferred out of California in 2021, and I still get both UP and Amtrak guys from them women that I knew out there that still contact me now. Like, "Hey man, how you doing? You still good?" People who trained me, people who worked with me. As you see, I talk a lot, and I remember the guys were like, "You talk too much. You need to shut up." So I think I had a trip at 3 o'clock in the morning, and I didn't say anything. And my engineer, it was me, him, and another conductor student he wasn't, he was a student engineer, I'm sorry. And he's like, "You ain't gonna say nothing, man?" I was like, "I've been told I talk too much, so I'm just trying to stay quiet." "Well, we need that at 3 o'clock in the morning, man. Talk." Like, do something. So, I just decided, I was like, I'm just gonna be me. I mean, I've always loved trains, and I wasn't gonna let anybody take it away from me. I go to work happy every day. I mean, I don't work with people now that want to make me sad. Everyone I work with now is amazing, and many of them can tell you, like, "Brian, oh yeah, he loves trains." Like that. You want to talk about trains? That guy right there. Like he's the dude. So I mean, I had that little controversy at UP briefly, but it worked itself out. I left. I went on to Amtrak, and I'm happy for my decision. I think ultimately I wanted to be a passenger engineer anyway.
Okay.
Like you and JJ were saying, I grew up in Atlanta, so I saw CSX and NS a lot. I always loved NS's engines. I don't know what about that paint scheme I love so much, but I wanted to work for them. They're the only railroad I applied for that told me no. Like, I was amazed at that. CSX jumped on it right away, even after quitting the way I mean, don't get me wrong, I gave them 2 weeks before I left. I didn't actually quit that day. He convinced me to stay, but they still gave me rehire status. Like, they're like, "Yeah, you can come back," But I growing up in Atlanta, my mom's house is literally next to the tracks. Like, I'm not even exaggerating. Like, there's her yard, and then there are train tracks right there. And I think that's the old WNA. I think TJ told me. I never got a chance to run that, but when I hired there, I had hoped I did, because I always wanted to know where those train tracks go. I knew where NS went, and I always wanted to know that. I wanted to see the old stations in Atlanta. I was hoping to see all that. Unfortunately, I left before I got that opportunity. But I always wanted to see all that. I went way down the rabbit hole on that. My bad.
No, you're good, man, because it's honest. It's something about that black and white paint scheme with that horse on the front. That must
Yeah, you know what's
mesmerizing to
funny?
me.
They like to make fun of you when you're going down the rails. And the guy made fun of us one day. I forgot what he called us, and he's like, "So how does it feel? Something I am something. I can't remember what he said." And I was like, "Right back at you. Nothing special." He was like, "Yeah, nothing special."
That's cold, man. Nothing special. All right, man. So you leave UP and you go to Amtrak on the West Coast, and you leave Amtrak, go to CSX, leave CSX, go back to Amtrak. Um,
Well, I only
what?
left Amtrak to go to CSX because 2020, when it hit, they had furloughed a lot of people at Amtrak, and I was able to hang out longer than most. I made it
Mm,
to December 21st. I got furloughed the week of Christmas. My conductor at the time, super nice dude, but he was also an engineer that was on the ground as a conductor. And he was a bodybuilder, and he hated having to wear his uniform. He loved to show his muscles. And he told me, he was like, he rolled me because he's like, I hate this uniform. And I think a lot of the people were in LA were really upset with him because they're like, this dude is not a conductor. He has no seniority to go back to. He's just furloughed. I was the only engineer that got furloughed. And that was only because the guys were so nice. A few of them chose to go back to being a conductor just so that I would not get furloughed. They kept
oh,
moving around to make sure that there was a vacancy for me to take. But after he took that last one, and I mean, he was a good guy. I mean, he talked to me about it. He's like, dude, can you talk to these guys? They think I did it on purpose, but you wanted it because I was trying to get transferred down here so I could be closer to my kids. I wanted him to roll me. So I was like, yeah, like, dude, I was like, yeah. I was like, we're cool. That's my boy. Like, I asked him. But that's the only reason I went to CSX because I thought I was gonna move home, and Atlanta was hiring, and I tried it. But like I said, when you do a job for a set amount of money, and then you're gonna do that same job and do it a little harder for less money, I just couldn't do it. Like I could not get it through my head enough to motivate me to do it. I mean, I understood like when that engineer I was telling you about told me like, hey man, CSX pays XYZ to be an engineer. And I'm thinking like I made more than that as a conductor. But, this then, not now, that was then. And I was like, now I understand why so many of you guys leave, like NS and CSX and come over because out west, Amtrak's the lower paid guy. Well, not always, but depends on where you work. Like Surfline is a little short trains. I'm sure the guys who work the road trains probably made way more, but I was on the extra board. I was the baby in seniority for like a whole year. Like because 2020 happened, so they hired nobody behind me. Like I was just stuck as the baby of the entire state of California for a year. You know, like so they were like, the dude above me, we're cool. He was like, well, I mean, I'm okay though. We had found out they actually ended up having to let go of one of our guys. He I can't remember what happened, but he got let go. And I remember we were all kind of sad because we were like, oh man, we're sitting at this table, we're like, that's messed up. He got let go. And then the other engineer who's right above me, he's like, looks at everybody in there, he's like, seniority move. I was like, what? It's like the body isn't even cold yet, man.
damn.
He's, I'm sorry, but hey, man, we're moving up in the world. Like, I mean, that humor was his thing, and it definitely motivated the room. But you know, yeah, that's the only reason I had left for CSX, and I gave him a try, and I really like the atmosphere of the Amtrak, and I love running passenger trains. I love going fast because down here, max we do is 79. In California, we do 90 for a good port, like pretty much all the way down to San Diego is 90, and going to Kingman, Arizona after you leave Barstow, that's mostly 92. And I mean, it is insane because you run that train, it's all nighttime, going out to Kingman. So you don't see it. But sometimes the train would get so late because of weather or whatever towards Chicago. And you would catch that in the daytime and you realize like how big some of those drops are. And you're going 90, you're passing freight trains doing 70 like they're crawling. Had a BN guy ask me, he was stopped. He's like, all right, Silver Bullet, how fast are you going? I was like, 89.9 miles per hour. He's like, sweet Jesus, boy. I mean, you blink at that speed, the whole train is gone. Like, but it was so cool because, like I said, some of those, I think, was it Pisgah to Daggett? I had this instructor that showed me the elevation chart. Now, it might have been that one, but I think it was a 2,200 foot climb. But at night, you can't tell that, but the daytime, you're like, that is a big drop. And you're doing this whole thing at 90. But it made sense now. Like, oh, okay, I get it now.
Okay, cool. So, West Coast Amtraks or down South Amtraks? What do you prefer? All in all, I know you said the speed over there in California is like 90 miles an hour, but down here in the South, you kind of get a little more scenic, in my opinion.
You do. A lot more history down here too. Like I said, that appeals to me a lot. Is seeing old train stations or seeing where old train stations used to be. That fascinates me. You don't see a lot of that out west. They still use a lot of them. Every once in a while, you'll see like a few, but most of them they still use. I like weather too. California ain't got no weather, at least not the parts I ran. I mean, it's either you get in the desert or something and it snows, which I didn't even know until I went out there that it even snows in the desert. I was blown away at that.
I didn't think California get cold.
Me neither. Like I had to take a shove in January once. This is when I was in freight, and it had been snowing in the desert, and I was like, "It snows." He's like, "Have you looked at the temperature?" It was like -2, and I was like, "It was like 100 and something a week ago, right here in this exact spot." And he's like, "Yeah, man, that's that high desert, man. It's like that." And I had a video when I lived in Bakersfield and worked in LA, 111 miles door to door. And I was leaving our house and it was dreary, like it was trying to rain. Got up in the mountain because you had to cross the mountain to go to work. It was raining. Get to the top, full snow, looked like the North Pole. Come down, a little bit of rain. In LA, it was a thunderstorm. It's like I went through all four seasons on my way to work. It was insane. And then when I get down to San Diego, sunny as all get out. Like it was insane. But to answer your question, I like the people out west a lot. I mean, it's still the railroad. It's all seniority based, no matter what. But I felt like those guys were a lot more considerate. Like if they asked you to run a train single engineer, they usually would check with the other person first. Like, hey man, do you need the money? You want the company? They would call you first before they just said yes. Down here, the people are nice, but it's them first. Them first, you second. But those people, like I've met some amazing engineers down here. I mean, these guys can do things with trains I never even thought possible. Like I saw in the other video you were talking about Big Mo. He was my first instructor when I was learning to go to New Orleans on the Crescent. I mean, he told me some amazing things. He still does every once in a while when I would see him. I mean, that dude is like a walking encyclopedia. And some other engineers out there taught me a lot too. So I mean, and one of them, he kind of convinced me to be an instructor. I wanted to talk to my boss about it because he said he became one, and a lot of people at the company didn't want to because NS used to be if you got in trouble, that was it. And he was like, well, someone took the time to train me, and I want to take the time to train someone else. I'm going to pay it forward. And I respected that, because that's true. Somebody takes the time to teach you. You should take your time to train the next generation. And I want to do that one day. Like I want to get a student one day, and hopefully I'll be able to pass on, my experience, and or the limited things I do know, I'll be able to pass that on to them as well. Because you learn a lot. I think that's a really good thing. But down here, it is more picturesque. Scene's a lot more slower. Especially on that new Mardi Gras run. I mean, it's beautiful. I mean, in California, I used to run about 2 hours of pure ocean on my run all the time. There's a video on YouTube that Amtrak did where they took a time lapse sequence all the way from San Diego on the Surfliner to Los Angeles, and you can see that whole route. And when I say it's beautiful, it is beautiful. I can't tell you how many times like you're right next to the ocean and you look out and you see like an aircraft carrier because there's Marine Corps base down there. I've seen submarines. Heck, one day my instructor was fussing at me about something I did wrong. I can't remember what. And he was running the train. I was sitting on the fireman's side, and he's like, you need to learn. If I tell you this, and I'll sperm whale just jumps up out the ocean behind him. I was like, whoa. He's like, what? Whale? Where? You know, and all he saw was just like the after he hit, he was like, why wouldn't you tell me? Like, that's important. I'm like, well, you were fussing at me. But I mean, I do miss that. But down here, every single day I get to see the dolphins when I cross like the was it the Biloxi Bay Bridge, and when we get into the little smaller areas in the evening time, the Wrigley's and some little channels we go right before we get into New Orleans, and you see a lot of them down there. A lot of them. I mean, it's amazing. You see old stations, and you're stopping at old stations too. And you know, people are always super nice. They're super excited to see you, and I love that aspect. You know, and even like another thing is history. Like the Crescent turned 100 last year, and I was proud of myself because the Southern Crescent, well, you know, started as a Crescent and eventually the Southern Crescent, but it made its 100, turned 100 years old as a route. And as a route, it ended with an all black crew, which thought was interesting because I had it was myself and two female conductors. We were the crew and we were all African American. And I thought it was interesting because about a year before, I had a gentleman ride the train. He was a Pullman porter. He was 102, and he was coming back with his great granddaughter. And he told me that he used to work the actual Crescent when Southern had it underneath their band. And from time to time, he had to work the Southerner too. And he had made friends with the engineers. And he was told him one day, he said he was at Birmingham at the old terminal station. And he told him, he said, I sure would love to run one of these one day. And the guy, he was like, as nice as, you know, good friend, but, you know, this is in the 50s or the 60s. I can't remember what year he said it was, but the guy looked him in the face and told him, there'll never be one of you, he used a different word, but one of y'all running this train ever. And he was like, man, I ain't calling you that name or nothing, but it's to see you up there means a lot. Like, you know, and then he started crying. It kind of got to me a little bit because the train attendant wanted me to come back and talk to him. She was like, yeah, there's African American running the train right now. Like, he could not believe. I mean, he knew that obviously that we do that stuff, but he just never thought he'd be alive to see the day when that was a thing, you know, especially on that particular train. And it really made me feel good, like literally to be the one to take it, end its trip after 100 years, and it be me, you know. I don't think anybody ever really looked that up. I mean, I knew it because I like trains. I told my crew, and they were mildly impressed, like, oh, that's cool. But it was just interesting to have that experience, you know. Yeah.
And I've seen a lot of your photographs on Facebook of you actually taking pictures next to the old Crescent E8s.
Yeah, that was I volunteered at that museum. I haven't in a while because I don't live in Atlanta anymore. But I used to the Southeastern Railroad Museum up in Duluth, Georgia.
Mm-hmm.
I used to volunteer up there, and I really enjoy being there. And they have that engine is the very last of 6901, last Southern engine to carry the train underneath into New Orleans under Southern's name. That was the last one. There are a couple of pictures of it on its last run before Southern sold it to Amtrak, taking it into that Union Station down there. And it's really cool to get on there and walk around. I mean, literally, that's just living history, you know? And I can't tell you, man, how much I love it. I mean, all the stations along the route, they're all old. And you can, I mean, you know that song, The Midnight Train to Georgia?
That's
Well,
right.
you know, that song was actually based off the Crescent. That's about what time they used to arrive there, you know? Gladys Knight even made the video and arrived to do some filming. Sorry, not filming, recording for that song on the Crescent. She actually was standing on that original platform down there that we still stop at now, which I think is fairly fascinating when you think about it. You could ride that train right now, get off there, and you're literally walking the same place that Gladys Knight, you know, got off the midnight train to Georgia, you know.
Mm-hmm.
We used to make that joke too if we got too late. I'm like, oh, we really are the midnight train to Georgia tonight. Like, you know, now we're the 10:30, you know, to Georgia. But yeah,
Yeah,
we
me
used to make that
personally,
joke all
I
the
call
time.
any train, any freight train, any passenger train going to Georgia overnight, midnight train to Georgia.
Mm-hmm. Well, you know, my dad, his father, you know, God rest his soul, Papa Smith, he told me a long time, because I've been in the train since Thomas the Tank Engine. I'm talking about like The day I got my license, the picture I put on Facebook was like me with a full Thomas the Tank Engine outfit with 2 trains in my hand by my grandparents. I was like 4 or 5. But he used to tell me the only way a man's supposed to arrive into Georgia was by train. And I was like, well, we got cars and planes. Talking about then. Uh, he used to joke around with me about that all the time. I used to take a lot of pride in running that train. I loved every minute of working the Crescent. I mean, I could tell you all kind of stuff about the history of that train and the stations. I really wish that I was able to see that, or like wish I had more of an interest in this back then, because like a lot of people that saw those old stations and got to experience all that, a lot of them have gone on. So as time goes on, that knowledge is just gonna go away. I know in your previous video you were talking to JJ about like PTC and things like that, and I was thinking, how trains when I was in LA, he's the number 1 engineer in the company now, but back then he was number 2. This guy there's a steam engine 3751. He used to work that steam engine as a fireman when it was in revenue service. That man has seen trains go from steam to diesel electric to probably whatever comes next. And he's still working for Amtrak now. And I was thinking, like, to see all those changes, those who know how to run steam engines, the knowledge gets smaller and smaller each year, as they pass on to a certain point that there will eventually be people that will not know what to do. They'll just have to look at a book, or hopefully somebody made a YouTube video maybe for the next generation, but that knowledge is just slowly being lost. Just like how back in the day they used to your family would teach you how to do roofs and build a home, and now no, you got a select few of us that know how to do it and do it well, but the average person is not going to get up on that roof and redo it. The knowledge is just lost as time goes. It's kind of tragic.
When you say that, do you think with the implication of a lot of these railroads having heritage programs where they're running steam locomotives, do you think that there will be a point that the knowledge will be retained?
I hope so. I mean, very few of them. UP is the only one they really do anymore. NS don't. CSX has a heritage fleet, but no steam engines. But I can understand in their point. They absorb so many different railroads, sky's the limit. I don't even think NS allows steam engines on their territory without PTC. I mean, we'd love to see it, but I don't think, like, most of the freight railroads only care about money. I mean, steam engines would draw a crowd. They want some good publicity within the public, but that would delay their operations, I think, too much for most of them. I mean, even UP, they might have the big boy, but I think the big boy earns its keep. Every once in a while, they'll have it pull a freight train. So, I mean, it's, it's functioning for them one way or another. I mean, it'd be nice, and hopefully they do. I mean, up there in Irondale, they used to have a big steam program when I was a kid. And I remember they used to take steam engines there. Georgia used to have one that went around the city, 290, and I think 750. I saw them when I was a little kid. But
you're talking about the New Georgia Railroad.
Yeah, I used to see them a lot when I was little. My grandma used to take me to the Roundhouse when she would go shopping. It's a shopping center by where they would service those engines and stuff. And now that place is nothing but that's the old Pullman yard. It's they used to build Pullman passenger cars and service them. Now it's apartments, and I think the Galileo Art Gallery. I went there one year. I didn't care about the art. I really just wanted to see the buildings. When I was younger, we used to go over there well, my mom ain't gonna watch this, but we used to go over there all the time and not break in, but go over there when we weren't supposed to see all the stuff they had out there. But it was pretty cool to see. But I hope they do, because I mean those steam engines, they're cool. I mean I don't care what you're doing. If you see a steam engine go by you, you're more than likely gonna stay. Even if you hate trains, like, whoa, look at that thing. It's huge.
Not only is it huge, but this is as far as stereotypical freight train or a train stereotypically, it's always a steam locomotive. It's never really a diesel. It's always a steam locomotive. So to actually see a working, fully functioning steam locomotive, that'll draw anybody's attention.
True. Plus, like the things they would do with them. I mean, like, in the Northeast Corridor, Amtrak runs trains over 100 miles per hour every single day. Anything north of DC, from my understanding, is just about anything is well over 100. Well, they were running steam engines up there like over 100 way back when. even going into Chicago, which I got a buddy told me they upped the speed. I think going through the city now for them for the most part is like 110, even now on Amtrak, And I'm like, man, that's crazy. But I watched a special with some of the New York Central, how it used to come into Chicago and it would show up at the same time that the Pennsylvania Railroad train would show up, and they had the old fireman. He's doing the interview, and he's like, I never forget, the engineer told me, you lay on it, you do not come off of it. He was like, it can only take so much. Do it. And he's like, they would be neck to neck. And he's like, their trains they would come in fast. They had a faster turnout. He's like, but they had bigger wheels. And he's like, we just walk right on past them every day and force them to have to slow down, and they take the station first. And I was like, and that's cool because, I mean, now you ain't racing nobody into the station. Dispatcher's got that planned out way before you get there. But it'd be cool to see.
I mean, that's cool that you say that when you brought up how people, how the railroads try to keep their image up with the public sometimes. It's crazy when you say that because it's like, it seems as if the railroad industry is not as respected as it used to be.
Well, they're hated by the public now. I mean, they don't care. Well, sometimes they don't care. It depends. Like, during Birmingham, you can ask JJ about this. They would have trains lined from Bessemer all the way into Birmingham, straight through the middle of that town. People have to go well out of their way to get around these trains. I mean, you might have a house that's 3 minutes away from where you are. Now you have to drive like 12 minutes away because you have to go find a way underneath this train to like get to your home because they tied it down for whatever because they don't have space in the yard yet. And at one point, it was a couple of days. I mean, and like y'all were talking about the DPs, they were doing that at UP all the time. They like have 4 engines on the head, 3 in the middle, 2 on the rear. And I mean, it would 2-3 mile long trains. There's one we have to every day now. CSX runs one. I can't remember the number, but it's about 2 miles. On the other day, I had to wait for him in the side, and he was puttering on. It's really flat there, but the guy was like, yeah, I'm going to be honest with you. You're going to be waiting for a minute, man. We're 2.2 miles long. I was like, man. And he bent it, every bit of it. And I mean, he was coming with it, but, he had to slow down for some signals just in case we didn't get in that siding before him. And get something like that back up to speed just to get it slowed down again. I mean, on an Amtrak train, that's nothing. But like on his, like in that particular area, he'd be going from 60 to a 30, and he's got to plan that out way, ahead of time, So I mean, it's it's got its pros and cons, but it's just one of those things, man.
Yeah, that's understandable, brother. Very, very understandable. Because I was saying to myself, like right now, if this was 2012, what was America's railroad at in 2012?
You said, where were they? You mean as far as company choose?
Like as far as public popularity, who was America's railroad in 2012?
Maybe UP or BN.
Norfolk Southern.
Really? Huh.
If you think about it, this was during the point in time they brought up their heritage units.
Yeah.
The theme program was getting back up and running. They had a whole when they I think they hosted that event over here in Salisbury, the Screenliners Festival. It was like Norfolk Southern was America's railroad, man. It's like the public image. You couldn't ask for anything better at that point in time with a railroad that was actually reaching out to the public, putting on a beautiful image. You couldn't ask for anything better, especially for me as an NS fan. But now, man, you don't have no heritage units. I mean, of course you got the heritage units, but the OCS trains, the F units is gone, sold off. They're not running the 611 and the various other southern steam locomotives no more. It's like the respect level for the public and the public's respect level for the railroad is going to crap.
I had watched this YouTube video a while back. They were talking to the last president of Southern Railway before they did the merger with Norfolk. He was the one that proposed and went through with it, and they were asking him about it, and he was saying how, and it's interesting because of what's happening right now. they merged because UP was running around buying up railroads and they did not want to be absorbed. They didn't want to be one of the ones, so they called up Norfolk and Western. And people were asking him for years, like, "Why did you merge with them? All they do is move coal." And he's like, "Yeah, but they move coal well." So when he called, their CEO was like, "Hey man, we could do this," and the guy was like, "Yeah, totally. Let's make this happen." And they did, and it worked out good for them for many years. And it's funny because now, after all that hard work, UP is still going to come and absorb them and take away the name. And I think it's even funnier is that he was talking about that, about how UP, like how he had the STEAM program, and they had it well into the like late '80s, early '90s. And then he was well, not him, but the predecessor that he trained, that guy was actually getting ready to step up. He said his last day, the guy looked at him and said, "I'm ending that STEAM program." He's like, "As soon as it's over tomorrow, just letting you know, you're the first one to know, but I'm going to announce that we are ending it." He said it hurt him to his heart because he liked trains. He grew up on trains. Everybody likes trains, but it wasn't his company anymore. He couldn't control with the next group. The guy looked at the dollar signs and just thought we could use that money elsewhere, somewhere in our pockets. Maybe realistically, that's what he said to him, but he probably was like, "Oh, we could use it for infrastructure or something." Maybe they would, I mean, it's their own thing, but ultimately, steam engines are expensive, and they sponsor a lot of all the railroads do programs, all over the U.S. But the thing is, realistically, they just don't care so much for the public. I mean, NS needed good publicity for a little while after they blew away. What was that, Lebanon? They blew away that town off the face of the earth, and then, like,
Which
what,
one?
3 weeks later, they told those people they could come back, and that one guy offered that woman $1,000. That was basically like, "Here's $1,000, get out my face." She
What
went to the
town?
local news and they were like, "No, we didn't mean that. We just meant here's $1,000 for today." Realistically, they probably meant it that way. Leave,
Which town you
but
speaking of?
like
Which town you speaking of?
Lebanon. You remember they blew that away? It's still people can't go home. The one they blew up, they made the black locomotive for it about the people of Lebanon, Indiana.
Oh, okay. When you
They
say
blew
that,
that
I was
thing off
thinking
the face
about
of the earth.
I thought you was talking about what? Well, you say they blew away a town, but I was thinking about Graniteville.
Is that the one with the chlorine?
That's
The
right.
chlorine thing? Yeah, that was CSX though, wasn't it?
So that was
Was
Norfolk
that in
Southern.
this?
That was in
That
it.
was Norfolk. Yeah. No, they right now I think they're fishing for good publicity, which I mean, honestly, right now they probably don't care because they're on their way out the door anyway. They gutted their company, and at this point they could do whatever they want. They could run a 4 mile long train. There's a fine. Hey, UP got something for you. Like that. That's pretty much how they probably feel about it. But it is what it is.
Do you think that a merger gonna go through? You think the STB gonna approve that merger?
Yeah, I do. I had hoped that it wouldn't, but the workers, for the most part, are pretty happy because West Coast guys want to come east, East Coast guys want to go west. So they got a lot of support on the inside. Both of those companies are mean. UP, when I was there, they idolized Norfolk Southern. If Norfolk Southern did it, they were next to try it. I mean, NS has actually had derailments where they sued the engineer and conductor. They haven't won one yet, but they've been trying. All the major ones, they always try to sue. And it's like, these are your people. You're supposed to be protecting them, but you're like, nope, I'm going to sue you for a couple of $1 billion that they don't have. But they're going to keep trying.
Plus,
You said, why would they? Yeah. I mean, when I was at UP, for the most part, I felt that they did take care of you if something bad happened. They tried to keep that stuff in house that they figured out what to do. I mean, I never experienced it per se there, but like just watching incidents that had happened across the nation and the way that, nobody was ever like, thrown under the bus the way I've seen other railroads do. I just figured that they would try to help you, or at least, help themselves really by helping you. But I don't know. Norfolk Southern, they are very, very not forgiving, and they've changed their image in the last few years. They really have, for whatever reasons, their own reasons. But I think with UP coming in, UP may bring some good. I mean, like I said, my experience with the company was not bad. I mean, there are a lot of others who'd be like, "Man, let me tell you," but everybody has those until you experience your own. You know what I mean?
yeah,
So I mean,
it may vary by location as well. When you say that, it may
true.
vary by location. It may vary by management.
It could. I mean, some people, no matter what job you choose, like when I was in the military, I knew a lot of people that should not have been. I mean, you're a higher rank, you're an officer, you're a horrible management individual. I mean, the military is still a job. I mean, it's its own domain, but it's still like a regular job. You work, you go off duty, you go home. And I met a lot of people that just didn't need to be up there, but they went to school, they got rank, they got jobs, and they just were not good for what they basically what they got, you know. And I feel like the railroad does that too from time to time. You hire somebody that's good with numbers, but not good at what, or they don't understand what they do. You know, back in the day, they used to promote from within for the most part. Now they're just purely out of school. Like, you got straight A's? Come on, man, come work for me. But you don't know them half of what you're doing. I mean, you could be asking them one thing like, "Why are you moving so slow?" or "Why are you this, that, and it?" Well, I'm going up a mountain. Like, it's not like I can just give this thing full throttle and she's just gonna be like, "All right, well, let's just go." Like, it doesn't work that way. But you know, they hire people that don't. I mean, some of them are good. And you don't have to come from the ranks to necessarily be a good manager, but you just have to understand it. You know, I think it's better when you get the ones that come from, especially if they're the ones that have done the work where they are. They actually can give some more insight as to why something happens. Like, why does the train slow down in this particular area? Well, the speed drops right there for 20, 30, 40 miles. Or, you know, actually, this area is very populated, so the trains don't particularly go barreling. You know, whatever. That expertise, I think, is needed so that you can pre-plan for better futures, you know. But, you know, I digress. That's their industry. They do what they need to do, you know.
So, do you think with continuing to hire people outside of the company versus hiring within, do you think that will continue to, in other words, be a conflict of interest when it comes to the employees? Because one thing we all can all agree with this, like you said, you know, they're all not bad, but you're coming on the job fresh out of college and you're trying to tell the engineer or conductor how to operate a train or how to conduct the train, but you have not put your own foot on this pavement. How you gonna tell somebody who's been out here and know the job better than what they know? How you gonna tell them how to do the job and you've never done it?
I think that's where crew resource management comes in, where you really are supposed to work as a team. Like, a lot of people out here have that, you know, mini me mentality. You do what I say do because this is the way I would do it, even if they've never done it before. They just look at something and think that's the way it can be done. I think there should be a lot more give and take in it. I mean, and I've had it out with some management before about doing that. Most of the time they'll listen. I mean, some of them think they know it all. Ultimately, they're still above, so you have to do it their way. It's painful. Sometimes it's more work. Sometimes it could do damage, but that's the way that you were told to do it. You know, it sucks, but if they won't hear you out, I mean, there are other avenues. I mean, nowadays in the workplace, you might in that moment have to bend the knee and do what's told to you, but you can express, you know, the issues that it brought forth at a later time. If the individual don't want to listen, they got a boss, or they have a peer or whatever, someone on the same level that you can speak to that they may be willing to listen to. Or you may just have to keep doing it the wrong way till something bad happens, and then that person just gets fired for making you do the wrong thing anyway.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, Amtrak taught us that there's crew resource management. I've not run into a manager that won't hear you out. Like, I'm sure they're out there. I mean, but since I've been here, they'll listen to you. They may not agree with you, or they may still want you to do it their way. But I've had more times where they'll answer the phone or let you sit in there and then talk to them. At UP, I experienced that too. You know, I've they'll listen to you as well. Like I said, I haven't run into that. I've been told plenty of stories where guys have, but maybe my demeanor. I mean, they didn't always go with my side of you. Some of them like, okay, I see your point. We could do it that way. Some of them like, no, we're just gonna do it the way I told you. Okay, it is what it is. All you can ask is to be heard. It may make more work for you, but that's all you can really do.
Yeah, I could agree with that, man. Cause all my MTOs was dope. Again, like I said, I'm out the door because I screwed up. You know, I want to clarify that for a lot of people who think that I don't take accountability for my reason for being ran off. No, it is 100% my fault. I
Well, I
screwed up,
mean,
I did what I wasn't supposed to do, and it's 100% my fault that I got out tossed out the door for however long amount of time that I'm out. You know what I mean? I mean, all you can do is just make your mistake and you take your punishment and you learn from it. If they want to let you back in, they'll let you back in. If they don't, they it's their ultimately their company and they're gonna do what they see fit.
true. Well, I mean, hopefully the railroad will, take time and look in this stuff. Hopefully they will bring you back or give you the opportunity and for you to decide if that's what you want to do is pursue it. I mean, maybe when you go back, maybe they'll be a little bit more mindful. I mean, you're definitely going to be more mindful, I'm sure. I mean, that's another thing, and I'm not saying you did this, but I know a lot of people when they get to railroading after a certain point, you get what's the word I'm looking for? You get comfortable, but there's another word that describes it. You just complacent, yeah. You get complacent and you just kind of like it's the same thing day in, day out. And sometimes just a small thing throws it off. It's like quicksand. That small thing grows into something much bigger because you've been doing it the same way every day. It works, and then one day it doesn't, and then you're like, now you're trying to play catch up, trying to figure this out to fix this. So I mean, it does happen. It happens to the best of us. I mean, when I was learning to run trains, I once ran a station, the longest station they have in LA. And my instructor allowed me to do it because he wanted me to get my own judgment right. And I clearly judged it wrong. So I had to back up, or shove back to the station a little bit. Well, like 2 cars. And my instructor, the manager was, why would you let him do this? And he's like, well, he's going to make a mistake. It won't be he won't be the first, he won't be the last, it won't be his first or last. So I mean, I try to be more conscious in the future, but I haven't bypassed any stations, knock on wood, but I've gotten some moments where I was like, come on, come on, come on, come on, come on, and it just stops just where I needed to, so I don't have to call the dispatcher and shove back and all that.
Mm. Okay. So let me ask you this one question. I asked, I interviewed Troy Sneed yesterday.
Hmm.
This question is pertaining to rail fans that are railroaders. Do you believe that rail fans who are railroaders are punished a little harsher when it comes to making mistakes? And do you think they are disciplined a little harder versus the average railroad employee, I should say?
I mean, from my experience, no, but I have been told different. Like I share my experience, I got more bullied from the people I worked with, not so much management. I mean, I got in trouble. They explained things to me. They took time, both at all three railroads when I messed up. Someone took the time to explain those things to me. Um, it might be my demeanor, it might be my experience. I don't know, but I can't say that. I mean, I know some railroaders that felt that way that were other rail fans, but most of them, like the ones that left when I talked to them, was more or less the workers just irritated them so much,
Hmm.
like I had one when I was still in my first year. I still had on my orange hat at UP, and this guy was a new conductor. He had seen my YouTube videos too. He actually used to down me a lot because the old heads said, like, "I don't listen to that guy. He's brand new and blah blah blah." And one day they called him to work with me. He took a look at that orange hat and he went into the train master's office. And he had asked, basically, he wanted to work with somebody that did not have an orange hat. I only had about 3, 4 days left wearing it, but he wanted someone else. And she came out and she explained it to me and was like, I felt like she kind of made a scene in front of everyone, basically telling them, you going to go to work or you just going to go home and not get paid and we'll, write you up, whatever. But he chose to go, but he was pretty upset. But I knew a lot of the guys that teased him because he would come to work with a lot of pride. He had went on eBay and bought himself like the raincoats that he used to give the management at UP. He used to shine up his boots and he wore an earpiece as opposed to using the thing like the rest of us. I mean, he was a very high speed conductor. Don't get me wrong, the boy was good. He would go to work early and like when he had to work the yard, map out the yard on his own time before it starts so he could figure out his moves, all that stuff. And it annoyed a lot of the guys and they teased him. It was His initials were SC. His first two SC. So they started calling him superconductor. And then they would like bother him all the time. They would see him like out there making his list in this parking lot before it was time to go to work. And then they asked the yard job, "Hey man, you'll move them 2 cars to another track," like just to mess with him. In all honesty, man, it's all good humor. That's what people do. When I was in the military, guys would mess with you like that too. It was all in fun. You'd laugh about it. It'd be all right. But he felt the management was bothering him because his list was wrong. He had this way he wanted to do things, and that wasn't the way they wanted to do them. One day he just quit. I mean, he was an electrician. He just went back to being an electrician. I mean, he loved trains, and I do hope it didn't put a bad taste in his mouth. They were messing with him, but with anybody else, you allow them to get into your skin and mess with you, they're gonna make it worse. Guys call me all the time, like I'm being a bigger guy. I had one of the conductors. I made a joke about being fat. I was like, man, I am getting fatter. He's like, dude, I know like 5 fat people. You're 4 of them. I mean, it sucks, but I laughed it off. Like it was funny though. And I was like, it is what it is. It's all in good humor.
Right.
But some people just can't handle that, and this is not an industry for the thin skin. It's just not.
I agree with that.
And I feel like he felt he was punished a little harsher because he was management in the way he was a rail fan in the way he did things. I even met a van driver like you used to be that went to work out in West Colton, and he was a bit of a know-it-all. He had it. He didn't have it coming, but he battled everyone because he drove the different crews around and this, that, and the other, and he thought he knew a lot. He knew a lot about the different trains that came through in the schedules, but he had no idea about switching or anything else. And they would consistently like embarrass his boy on the radio. Well, he would embarrass himself, and then they would go make it like 10 times worse. And I think he even did that when he had to face management too. He would get smart with them, and you're still on probation. That's just not the way you do it. You want to show that you're a good employee. You be yourself, but you don't go fight. No job do you go fighting with your boss right out the gate. But he's still there, at least I think he is. But he was one. He felt the same way, being a rail fan. The guys teased him. He felt management would, But I mean, it is what it is. Everybody has those moments. I had a manager that did. And I think about it. I forgot all about him. He had when I first hired, he was really nice to me. I was in training, and he did, when the guy started like, oh, Brian likes trains, he could tell you the history of this. And I asked a lot of guys the questions. Like, we had a caboose there. I used to ask a lot of questions about the caboose and the auto dock. I had all kind of questions, and they would tease me about it, but it was all in good humor because I still got my answers. But that manager, he like over time just did not like me. This isn't train simulator. You need to learn your ding gone job. And that one day, like I think towards the end of my training, I had 2 weeks left in RCO, and he had talked to me like the week before. He's like, "You leave after 4 hours every day." I said, "Well, the guys won't let me use the box." I mean, I was learning, I was slowing them down. They would let me be a switchman, but after a while, they wouldn't even let me do that. They wanted to get finished so they could go home. And I'm not gonna lie, I was a horrible switchman. I wasn't very fast, and switch lists used to get on my nerves. Great conductor, horrible switchman. So anyway, me and this manager, he was like, "Don't leave anymore for stay the whole time." I said, "Okay." And I did, and I would watch the guys like, "Just stand here and observe." And I did that. We watched you on camera all night, just stand there. I was told to observe. When they asked me to do something, I did X, Y, Z. You think it's like, these trains. You're not very good. He was just a butthole. But I'm trying not to curse on your show, so I'm working real hard to find words around that. But so it ended with one day it was 3 students in that yard, and it was one other guy that was black. He's an engineer now at UP, best conductor switchman. That dude's like my brother. He was an ex-Marine. Me and we was like this. Anyway, his family lives 7 hours away, and he had asked, because it was a holiday, could he leave at midnight? And the other management was like, "Yeah, you can leave at midnight." So my last day, I come into the office, and I'm like, "Hey," the guy's like, "Can I see you for a minute?" I came into the office. You think you're slick. You think because you come in here, you know all these train stuff, these facts no one gives a F about, and you think you just run this. And I was like, "Okay, so what's going on?" So he's like, "Look, I'm going to recommend to the company they let you go. I know you came all the way from Alabama. I don't really care. Best wishes to you and your family, but you don't got no place around here. I said, I have no place around here. At this time, there was another person in this office, Hispanic gentleman who was a carman. He was the lead carman, actually. He was putting in his notes or something. And I noticed he stopped typing to like kind of eavesdrop. And I said, well, you know what, Scott, you got to do what you got to do, man. I said, well, it was nice meeting you, man. And I held my hand out to shake it. He looked at my hand and looked at me, and he was like, he wouldn't shake my hand. So I pulled my hand back. I said, well, have a good day, man. So I'm walking out the door. He's like, you think you're slick, Mr. Train Man. I said, slick, sir? How am I slick? And I have a very good memory. I remember this. He's like, I told you not to leave early. I said, I've been here working 12-hour days every day I come to work since you told me that 2 weeks ago. No, you didn't. He's like, you left at midnight. I said, I did not. He turns around and says, I got you on camera. I said, please show me. Turns the screen around. It was the other engineer, a guy named Leslie. We ain't even the same color black. We're both black, but we're not even the same. I said, you got to be shit. Excuse me. I'm sorry. You got to be kidding me. And he's like, yep, I got you. I said, that's Leslie. That's your other black guy. That's not me. And he turned the screen around. He looks at me. I said, we're not even the same color. I said, you know what, Scott? You have a good day, man. I'm out. And he was like, well, hold on. Let's talk. I said, ain't no talking. Dude, like, leave me alone. And I called my direct manager, and then I called HR, and my manager called me back like, I am so sorry that happened to you, man. Like, that's not right, And I remember he was like, I can send you to another yard for the last couple of days if you'd like. I said, no, I ain't gonna let him run me off. And the guy chose to stay out of my way for those last few days. And then the superintendent contacted me. I guess he upset him, and they were trying to use me to get rid of him. But in the end, I think they sent him to charm school. By the time I realized how bad it was, like the company tried to slick pull me to the side and question me about him without anybody else being there, because I was too new. I didn't know that I should bring somebody in there with me and stuff, and I'm answering their questions, and some random railroader was like, what? No, man, come on. No, you can't ask him the questions. Are we just having a talk? No, you're not. He was like, you're trying to, he's like, dude, don't ever let them do this to you. So he told my engineer. My engineer's like, yeah, they were trying to get this. I get off work. The superintendent's like, don't leave Colton until you talk to me. And that was a whole thing. But in the end, that guy ended up being sent to whatever we called it charm school. They basically sent him how to learn to talk to people and not make those kind of mistakes. Honestly, if I had figured out what it had, I could have sued or something like that. But I wouldn't have. It really wasn't that damn serious to me. But, that for the rest of the time I was at UP, that dude, if I came into that door to that train master's office closed, well, we didn't have they did have train masters, but he was a MTO. He used to close that door, and he wouldn't come out until after I left. Like he was determined, like, I ain't gonna mess with this dude. He ain't gonna get me fired. I mean, we just, that was, I forgot all about that, but that was, I guess, the only issue I had where somebody had an issue with me being a cheat told somebody else. That was it. Like, just my random train knowledge just got on his nerves, which all he had to do was just say that, like, man, I don't want to hear that crap. And I would have kept it to myself, but it is what it is, man. I don't let stuff like that intimidate me.
Yeah. You're not supposed
But
to.
I don't. True, like, I don't feel as though that instance, I think I was bullied for that, well, not bullied. I think I was judged a little harshly on that one. The fact he wanted to end my career because I basically got on his nerves sucked. But that's probably the only instance in the entire time I've been at the railroad that being a train fan, as far as me and the company goes, was a thing. I mean, ultimately, I don't think so, but like I said, but the other story I shared with you with that other conductor, and like what happened to some others I know, they could probably feel different. But from my experience, I only had the one, and it fizzled out before it got to a whole blown out, thing.
I mean, me personally, working for CSX, well, the L&C Railroad, the short line that I used to work for, everybody was a rail fan. Everybody was a rail fan. So I ain't had no issues over there. I ain't had no issues with CSX as far as me being a rail fan. A couple of them, they all knew that. Well, if Donnie not working, and it's Sunday, yeah, you might find him outside watching such and such get built. You might have his little boy with him. my favorite train to catch out of that yard was the 6:30 that went from KC to Savannah. It was days I might be out there 12 hours, and I know the six because I done built the 6:30. It's days I've been working out there from like 3:30 in the afternoon to like 2:30 in the morning, and I know the 6:30 got about 125 cars because I love I'm a big fan of big freight trains, not necessarily 2.5 mile ones and stuff like that, but a pretty.
Yeah.
I'm okay with a good 150 car train, maybe 200 cars, but with no DPs or anything like that. That's just my what I love. But I done built the train, and third shift they finished the rest of the switching, and they brake test the train. But I already know this train got this. I'm getting I'm off at 2:30. Train going doing such and such time in the morning, like very early. I'm gonna go home, probably get about 4 or 5 hours of sleep, and be right back out to watch 6:30 get built and watch the shoe off to go down the road. So I got little jokes like that. People might say, "Oh, we think that's a little weird." I mean, it was fine with me, but as far as overall, no, my coworkers didn't give me shit for being Lord. My coworkers didn't give me any crap for being a rail fan.
I think the ones I work with now don't care because sometimes they are fascinating. I had one he used to mess with me about it, but ultimately he likes it too. They all like it. I mean, like I said, the people I work with now, it don't bother them. I mean, I could talk for hours about trains. I mean, you'll look at something like, oh, there used to be an old station right there. Especially like when I used to work the Crescent. I mean, you see how like cities have risen and fallen because the railroad just up and bounced out, and you can see like the infrastructure. Like there's one city we go through. What was that? Utah would be the city up there, and I cannot Akron, Alabama. In the center between the side and the main line, there used to be a station there. And the station is gone, but you can still see the linoleum on the ground from where the station was.
Mm.
And I think that's pretty cool because like it was there in like the early 20s, and I mean it's nothing there now. They took it out sometime in the 70s or 80s, but you can literally see where it once was. I mean, same thing like in Mobile, like the Mobile station, or what's that? Not Ocean Spring, Golden Owls. You can actually see where the station used to be, and it was a parking lot and all that stuff is still there, but it's just a slab of concrete now because the station's long gone. But I mean, those tracks have been there for so long. I mean, I had a old head tell me years back that and he was a rail fan too. He loved to mess with people. He was fascinated with cars. Like he looks up the marks to find out who owns the cars, and I showed him eventually how you could look up history. I mean, as far as like where they've gone, he's super fascinated in that stuff. And he was telling me about how like what's that Bolagie, Alabama, how the train used to go. It goes down to Gulfport that way, and then the other way it goes up to Columbus, and it merges into where like the old Frisco, Southern, and now it's BNSF up there. And he's like, none of the trains go past Columbus now except for BNSF. They're the only ones. Southern, everybody else cut their stuff off. But if BN ever wanted it, they could go back and get that line back, and they could run trains all the way to Gulfport if they wanted to.
Mm.
It's a diamond. We cross over, but I mean, he used to tell me like all that stuff. How the guys used to think he was weird. He worked for the old, not Meridian Bigsby. What was that railroad? Greenville and Columbus and Greenville. And he was like, man, I used to go and watch the trains for hours at a time, like back in the 70s and 80s. And it's funny, he even found an old newspaper article when he was 16 where he stole a locomotive and ran it all the way up to where he had made friends with the guys, and they had taught him a lot. And he ran the train up to him, and they were like, you need to go back now, take it back. Unfortunately, someone found out about him and he got arrested and all that stuff. But they were so impressed with him that they told him when he graduated high school, if he wanted the job, they would give him a job. But he ended up joining the Marine Corps instead.
Okay.
But he had a
Now I will say this, a lot of some of my coworkers would say, we thought it was weird that you like the trains because, like I said, some days it'll be like not only that, but get off the train 1:30, 2 o'clock in the morning. Instead of me going home, I'm going to see Norfolk Southern and see what they got going on. So a couple of guys are like, we kind of think that's weird, but my thing is, well, I love trains and it's fine if you think it's weird. I also think it's weird that you've been on this job 10, 20, 30 plus years and the only enjoyment that you get out of it is the money. And don't get me wrong, it helps you take care of your family, of course, but just because my reason for wanting to come to work and enjoy my job is different from your reason, like I said, don't make it right or wrong. I mean, it does
True.
not make it right or wrong. It doesn't make it weird or wrong.
You're right. I mean, I feel like I used to hear a lot of guys gripe about it when I was in freight. Not so much on the Amtrak side. I mean, there are some, but a lot of them in freight. And I was like, why don't you just quit? No. Why don't you just quit? I was like, I love my job. You're the one with a problem. Quit. Like, there's other things you could do with your life. Not making this kind of money, then shut up and go to work. I mean, that's how I felt then. Now, I mean, it is what it is. I mean, you can't let people take away your joy. It is like you said, you getting off work and want to look at a different train. That's fine. That's their business. I enjoyed that. I mean, I used to get off if I made it around the same time in Roseville that Amtrak would come through. I like to stand there and watch Amtrak go through.
Mm.
I mean, it always fast. This before I went there, I was like, I love to see it. It was just something about a train. Like they were like, I bet you would take the train. I said, yeah, I would take the train. Why? You work on trains. I was like, I know, but it's Amtrak. I want to ride it. They thought I was kind of weird about that, but I mean, it's my passion. It is what it is.
Now, don't get me wrong. There are some days when I get off work, I don't want to see nothing about no train. I want to go to sleep. There's
I
some
feel you
days
on
that
that
on
one.
my days off, I don't want to go watch no train. I want to go to sleep. I want to spend time with family. But that's just people gonna always say what they want to say, regardless whether they think you're cool or whether they think you're weird. People just gonna always have something to say. Me personally, I don't let it get under my skin because I love my job.
Right.
But I also when you get on my nerves, leave me alone.
Yeah. You used to have this old head that used to talking about when we get on the engine, they were like, Brian, you talk, he ain't gonna talk to you at all. So I was like, he gonna talk to me. He had a little curtain he would put up literally like the divide his side from mine. And it was weird because I'm like, I can still see you. So I mean, but he would put it up. But I got to talking to him then one day after the trip, me and him, they were like, how the heck did you get him to talk? I've been working here like 14 years. He's said like maybe 3 words to me the entire time. I was like, he likes motorcycles. What? I was like, he likes motorcycles. Talk about motorcycles. He for the whole 8 hours, that's all he talked about was like motorcycles, engines, and muscle cars. Yeah, I was like, you just gotta find what people like. I was like, he didn't want to talk to me, but the more and more I kept mentioning, a motorcycle went by, and I was like, that's a Harley. Looks like one of the old schools, like an Indian. It's not an Indian, Indian, blah 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 blah. Harley Davidson beat them unfair. Like he had a lot to say after you get that, Then after that, he tripped. Hey Brian, how you doing, man? What's up? Like
Yeah, man,
he
it's
was
all
super
about sometimes when you
excited.
ride with certain engineers or conductors, it's all about finding a common ground if you want to communicate. Now, some of them you just not going to be able to talk to because they ain't got nothing to say. They just want to get on and get off.
Mm-hmm.
But if you can find that common ground with somebody, like for example, me and JJ, we work for two different railroads, but of course we have a common ground outside of the railroad, which is the marching band. He loves
Yeah, I
HBCU
saw
marching
that in your
band. I
videos.
love
I used to go to
HBCU
that
marching
Honda
band.
Battle of the Bands myself. I
Right.
love that. Do they still have that?
The Honda is actually out of, if I'm not mistaken, the Honda going to be out of what's that football field? They're gonna host it out of.
I know they left Atlanta,
Yeah,
but
they
I don't
left
know where it
Atlanta.
is now.
They was holding it down in Texas. If I'm not mistaken, this year is going to be in the stadium for the 49ers.
Oh wow, okay, okay. Yeah, I used to see it all the time at the Georgia Dome. I remember they were filming Drumline. That's telling my age right there. But I remember they had it all that stuff back then.
But it's amazing to sit here and think about the whole time we thinking that North Carolina A&T was a college. Not North Carolina A&T, Atlanta A&T was a college. The whole time that was a high school marching band.
Yeah, Southwest DeKalb High School, they have a 300 plus band, even though a lot of us feel like they have a 300 horn holders because I think they got invited to do the Macy's parade like the year after that movie, and that's when everybody realized that the amount of sound that comes from that would be much louder if 300 kids were really playing versus some of them holding them instruments and pretending. So I mean, it's yeah.
Yeah.
But that Morris Brown that they showed at the end, not so much in the movie parts, but at the very end, that was the original Morris Brown. I used to love to see them back in the day growing up. It was
Mhm.
unfortunate what happened to them.
Yeah, they got their accreditations back.
I don't think they're ever going to get back to where they were, but I am glad that they are back out there. I mean, it's worth because their campus. I was showing it to a friend of mine last time I went home, and he was like, "Dude, this is like insane. It's like run down and burnt up." I was like, "Man, it's gotten time. It's been a thing." I showed it to my girl too. I was like, "It's not what it used to be." I mean, it was like all burnt down and the AUC just ain't what it used to be. I mean, Clark still got a decent band. They're not going to be up there like with FAMU or anything, but
It's serves
they're
the purpose for the Alabama area.
yeah, that's all they really got now. I mean, because honestly, all three schools can participate in the different bands. So Morehouse and Spelman students can participate in their band, and vice versa. So I mean, it's you got to mix. I kind of wish they would just have like one gigantic band. It would help out both schools. But Clark used to be, the band. I like them too. They took over after Morris Brown. They own a lot of that stuff out there now that belong to Morris Brown. They own a lot of that. They're like old facilities and things like that.
Boy, if Herndon Stadium could talk.
It's funny. We went in there. This is 20. I was still in the army because I was slim. I squeezed through the fence. That had to be in like 2012, maybe 2011. No, about 2012, 2013.
Squeeze through the fence.
And but yeah, I can do that now. I went through there and we were just walking around and we went through the tunnels and they still had instruments and stuff down there. I mean, somebody had come through and stolen all the aluminum things that the fans were sitting on or whatever.
Mhm.
But it was interesting to see that in the room there were still like instruments, and I mean they were all broken and smashed up, but they still had them in there. Like they weren't kidding about just leaving stuff where it was when they bounced out. And it just tripped me out. They filmed, what was that movie, Civil War? They filmed a scene in there recently. That was year before last. And I was like, man, it's just tragic, man. Beyond tragic.
All right, so man, we're gonna come to the segment of the show where you work for Amtrak, you work for CSX, and you work for UP. Give me a couple of stories, some of your most memorable runs on all three railroads.
UP. I know my first time going to Oakland, I was with this engineer. I forgot his name now. And I had heard from the guys who had it as a regular how the people out there like to shoot at the train. And I'm just sitting there and I'm telling them we're joking around about some movie we saw. And the train, we're going through this area, all of a sudden he just like stands up and walks over on the floor and lays down. I said, "What are you doing?" He's like, "Trust me, Brian, lay down." I said, "What?" I was like, "Ping, ping, 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 ping." Like bullets started in the front. I was like, "Oh!" I hit the ground. I was like, "What was that?" And the alerter started going off. I'll never forget. He like slowly like reaches over and taps the alerter and then lays back down and it stops. And then once it stops, he gets up and he gets up off the floor and he's like, I said, "Why was that?" He was like, "Yeah, on Fridays they get drunk and high and they like to shoot at the train." I said, "Are you serious?" I said, "How did you know?" He said, "Oh, I saw the muzzle flash. I knew it was coming." And it tripped me out. After that, I didn't want to go to Oakland no more. Like I don't get off that board quick. I don't want to go down there anymore. Amtrak. Let's see. When Amtrak, I told you the one about the whale. I don't really have too many memorable ones about Amtrak. I mean, I know when I was learning, I remember my instructor telling me, he's like, "Brian, you gotta set your brakes right here." Like when I started learning to go to Atlanta, it was still like fall. So the summer, I mean, not summer, it was fall. So the sun was still going down late. So finally, I was learning the next segment of the territory. My instructor's like, "All right, Brian, whenever you see this field, just remember to put the brakes on right here. Get ready to go on your brakes." I said, "Okay." So I'm running one night. This is like the next day. The sun is going down super early. It was dark before we even left Birmingham. And he's like, "Remember, Brian, set your brakes when you see the field." It was dark as all get out. I was like, "Where's the field?" It's he looks out the window. So the other engineer's messing like, I see a lot of dark, I don't see a lot of field. He's like, shut up. It's here, Brian. Like, trust me. And I'm like, okay, we're getting closer and closer. Then the PTC starts counting down because it's time to slow down. And I'm like, where? Where's the field? And he's like, all right, Brian, screw that. Just put the brakes on. Like, it was a little bitty little board, little crossing board. Kind of. He's like, from now on, use that board. And I was like, I think that's too early. It don't matter, Brian, because you can't see the field. You know, you got to use it. I remember that because it stuck out to me because for years after that, that's where I would set the brakes on the train going forward. And when I got to that spot, and people who've ridden with me since, like, why do you set your brakes so early? Like, I don't know, man. Something about that field right there. Like, I just know when you see, it's like, why here? I don't know. But the rule is, you see that sign, you set the brakes. You know. Or, oh no, you know what? I gotta be one better than that. My instructor, I call him Obi-Wan. Me and we're both Star Wars fans. Coming into California, he was teaching me towards the end of my training, like judgment. He wouldn't tell me where to set the brakes. So once he realized I could stop the train on the last platform, he was like, "I'm gonna leave it up to you. You decide where." So I tried everything. It's an oak tree. I tried the oak tree. I stopped the train. Set the brakes there. Still got stopped decent. I tried because we're pushing past the regular breaking point. So one day he's sitting in there with me, and he's like, he was reading some notes or something, and he's like, looks at me like, "Did you set brakes?" I said, "Well, no, you didn't give me a new spot." He looks up, "Set it now, 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 now." So it went like medium suppression, full service, and stopped it perfectly on that. Perfectly on that, and yeah, that worked out. And yeah, also, I had that situation the other week. Sometimes, I figured, you get into those, you get people to try to go around the gates, and I had a situation like that the other week where a guy was, he was, but it's been on the news. They had the clip. It was on the news recently, but it was coming about 26 miles outside of Mobile, coming around this corner, and I saw him coming, and I thought at first, I said, he's not going to do it. He's going to slow down because there was a car already at the crossing. And I saw him lean all the way out. I said, he can go around it. And I thought I had him. We're doing like 79 miles per hour. And I see it, and I'm getting ready to put the brakes on, and he's right in the middle of the gates. Like, he went around them. I slammed it into emergency, and I hit him, and it knocked his car like backwards. Like, it hit him so hard, it slammed his truck on the other side of the tracks, but the other side was still fate. It looked like he was getting ready to go across it in the opposite direction.
Mm.
And I think he had. By the time I got stopped, I had horrible. I was like praying that he'd be okay, that everyone in the car was okay, and I had gotten out and was talking to my conductor, one of the conductors that went back to see what was going on, and they said that the guy jumped out of his truck. He left his girl in the truck, and he looked at the damage to the truck and saw these people coming to try to help. He got scared and just took off running. Don't know why. He just took off running. And dude, that. I was glad that he was all right and everything, but I was like, Jesus, who does that? Like, have an accident? I've hit, unfortunately, quite a few things out there, but never have I seen somebody just flee it. Oh nope, I'm out of here. Dude left his wallet, his ID, his actual car with his tag and insurance information. The cops won't just look through that and be like, all right, we'll just see him at his home tomorrow. Come on, dude. And you left your girl. He just left her in the car. He was just like, oh, okay, I guess it was all right, babe. It's over now. Good luck. And he just bounced out.
Man, look at here. I can imagine that curse out.
I won't even. She probably gonna be worse when the police get done with him.
All right. I can imagine that curse out right there. Because you left, first and foremost, you had no business running around the railroad crossing, running around the gates. We get hit by the train, and then you bail and leave me there?
Dude, that's such a common thing, man. When I was in Cali, every October they have we call it not your fault class, where they sit down, they talk to you, and they explain to you that it is not your fault. People, this is the holidays, usually around October, so it covers the November, December months, and people get depressed. They don't have their family. It's a lot of homeless out there, a lot of mental health issues, and the people don't. They don't think that they think of a long term solution to a short time problem. Really, that's the only way to describe it. And a lot of them will commit suicide by train. They'll stand in the tracks, dive in there at the last minute. And like I said, we're doing 90 for like a good portion of that stuff. It ain't much to find of someone if they, do that. But I think my first one, I hit that lady. I felt horrible. Like I remember I took my time, and they said that I could talk to someone about it, and I was telling the lady, I said, I feel like, the lady was looking at me. I think that's like one of the worst things. I always tell if I have a student or a conductor up there and they're not familiar with it, like if it's going to be a hit, I always tell them, look away. I don't know. Human nature is to want to watch it through, but I'm like, just trust me, look away. And because I swear that first one, it's like she was looking directly at me. Like I told that psychologist, I said that lady was looking right at me, and she was like, "Really?" And so you can see it in the camera. And she's like, "Okay." I say the camera, video. She's like, she's looking right at the camera. I said, "Yeah." She said, "Well, where's the camera on the locomotive?" I said, "Well, it's on the fireman's side, facing forward, kind of in the middle." And she's like, and she's looking right at it. I said, "Yeah, right at it." And she's like, "But you're on the engineer side." And I was like, "Yeah." And then she made me realize that it's not that they're looking at you, they're looking at the train. It's just you're focusing all your view on them. Because I mean, you've given the train everything you can. You've given it all the emergency brakes, everything's coming on, it's trying to stop. But there's just nothing you can do. You're alone for the ride at that point. You pray, you hope, like please let us stop, please let us, don't let this happen. And you feel it. I mean, you can feel it when it happens. And I just thought, like, for the longest, I thought that lady was looking at me until she pointed that out to me, that they're not looking at you, they're just looking at that train, which I can't imagine what goes through people's heads. Like I had a near miss this was in October, and this guy, he was a young black guy, very well dressed. I thought he was doing a TikTok video or something. We see a lot of dumb people on the tracks run around trying to make a video or play chicken and jump out the way or something. But this guy, something was weird about him. He was walking down the gauge, and I was already slowing down because the speed changes right there to slower speed. And he dropped down like he was sitting down. And then he got up, and some guy just came running behind him. And I'm slowing down. I'm giving it more and more and more brake. And I'm blowing because it's a crossing right there. And finally, he starts like walking towards the train, and this guy is putting full speed in this sprint after him and hits him and tackles him off the tracks. And I had slowed down. I went from maybe 60 to maybe 20. And when I had released the brakes, because he was off and clear, and I looked down and I could hear him. He's like, "Let me go. I want to do this. Let me go." And he was wrestling with the guy, and the guy was hugging him, just like, "No, you don't want to do this, man." And he's praying. I mean, I can hear this plain as day, over all the noise around. I could hear him, like, "God, Heavenly Father." He's like really praying with this kid. And like a little bit further, I look at the car that he had jumped out of. He had jumped out of his car, left his wife and kids that were at a red light at the crossing, jumped out of the car to go save that guy. And I mean, like I said, he was a young dude. He was not homeless. He looked like he was in good health. And I called the dispatcher, and I told the dispatcher, I said, "You need to get someone out here," because there was another train, CXX train coming behind us, and they were one of those 2 mile ones. They weren't going to be able to stop if something happened. So I was like, somebody was nice enough to stop him this time. I can't say that somebody will be nice enough to do that again. But I had never in my life seen somebody want to die so much. I mean, he was trying to fight the guy to get away just to do it. I mean, they got a call like a minute later that told the other train that the police had got him off the tracks and took care of him. But of all the years I've been railroading, that probably was like the weirdest one, because I just never seen somebody want so much to do it. And most of the people that do it, it's kind of like in a flash. They just know you can't do anything. But a good person just happened to be going by and chooses to like risk their life to save this kid. and hold him. I mean, like, I can't even describe. I mean, dude, it had me messed up in the head for the whole ride down. Like, I was in New Orleans, just sitting in the crew room, thinking, like, what was going through this kid's mind? You know, what in your life is so bad that you feel like you have to do this? You know, mental health is very real. I mean, those problems. I'd rather listen to a person's problem than read their obituary. I've been like that. Military. I saw a lot of guys. Unfortunately, you know, they couldn't take it. You know, and you just nothing's worth that. I mean, that is a very long term solution to a very short time problem.
Right. Right.
And that's more of the darker side of what I do. You know, because I mean, there's only so much you can do. Once you've done everything you can to try to stop it, it's just on gravity at this point. You know, you could have the best brakes in the world, but it's on gravity at that point. You know, the only thing you can do is pray. It's just pray, 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 and not look. You know, but it's just one of those things, man. I don't really have any stories for CSX. I wasn't there, but like a blink of an eye, really. I mean, I met some good people. That was about it.
Okay. Okay. All right, man. This is the last segment of our show. Newcomers, future railroaders. What's the advice you could give them, brother?
Stay motivated. Don't get too intimidated. It's a lot of knowledge coming at you. Do listen to the people around you. None of them. I mean, seriously, even the crappiest of them don't want to see you fail. You know, um, it will be challenging. It's you got to make sure you're mentally prepared for it because it will take time. It will take a lot of time. You will miss birthday parties. Times if you like me, you don't have any seniority. You probably won't see a lot of holidays either. As far you might have to travel for your seniority. When I was in freight, I had to do that quite a bit. I had to go sometimes 4 hours away, if not longer. If you want to continue to work, you know, chasing that seniority, it take you to some different climates. I mean, it can be hard, but you know, if you can stick with it, if you can work with, you know, well with others, you can do what you have to do. You stay motivated, you keep up on your, you know, everything they train you and teach you. You know, you'll set yourself up. You'll learn ways to do it. People will teach you easier ways, but as long as you know you can do it, you stay motivated and keep yourself focused. It's not a bad job to have. It pays a lot of money. I got a very good retirement plan. I mean, you get to see things that you'd never see any other way other than working for the railroad in most cases. And, you know, you get to do something that not many of us do. You know, not many people will do. I mean, I can't tell you how many times I get off that engine and people are like, that's you? You were driving that thing right there? I'm like, yeah. I mean, you hear all kind of stuff like, you know, is it hard going around corners? You got to turn the steering wheel real hard. You know, like, nah, it runs on tracks. We're all good. Um, you know, but you know, you get to, it's a good job. It's a great career. Like I said, it is a lifestyle. It is. It's not just like a regular 9 to 5. And you're not going to get a lot of the things you get from a 9 to 5. You're not going to get a lot of vacation time. I mean, not vacation time. I'm sorry. You're not going to get a lot of time away. You know, a lot of the railroads work on call. So, I mean, it's hard. You know, I've been in situations where I had made plans and then boom, here comes that phone call. Time to go to work. You know, that's that extra board life. Living that now. It sucks, but you got to do it. But, I mean, you'd be surprised where you'd be. I was in a movie theater once getting ready to watch a movie. Just bought the ticket, sat down, and then boom, you've been called on duty for, you know, and have to leave, you know. But it is worth it if you can handle it. I mean, it's got great opportunities, and honestly, with the way things are going with these new agreements, the unions working decently hard to help get us more of a lifestyle in it. So I mean, I've been told by a friend of mine who works for UP that they got, I think, what, 11 and 4, 11 days they work, 4 days are off. I mean, it's a lifestyle. It might be during the middle of the week, it might fall on the weekend sometimes, but at least you're able to have a life that I didn't get that when I was in freight. That's one of the many reasons I came to Amtrak. Amtrak trains run on schedule. And I know for the most part when I had a regular one, I was going to work and when I wasn't, And even being on the extra board, I know at a certain point the train is out of my limits and I don't have to worry about them calling me. So, I mean, the extra board, I don't know if you did explain to people what that extra board is like, but it's a unique twist on it. And that's where a lot of us start. They pay you for your time. So, minus the day that you have off a week, they expect you to be available 24/7 within that time frame. So.
So for people who don't know what the extra board is, I've said it many times in some of my other video clips that's on TikTok. Extra board is pretty much a list of substitutes and fill-ins. For example, people that work on a regular train, a regular scheduled train and whatnot, have the seniority to hold it. Well, I don't want to work today. I might have a doctor's appointment, so we go grab this guy to fill in for you, whether you're an engineer or a conductor. So it's basically a list of substitutes, or I should say fill-ins, either or. And then you have a lot of extra boards cover trains in areas that don't necessarily have a dedicated crew. And what I mean by that is you may have a through freight that comes through your terminal. A through freight is a train that comes through the terminal and it doesn't stop to do any yard work. You might just come in, stop, change crews. One crew get off, another crew get on, and they go on by their business. So pretty much, again, like I said, extra board is just a list of substitutes and fill-ins to work on trains that don't really have particular crews, or you're filling in for a person who work a regular train. And it's random. It's random, but it's also based in order. If you first out, you get called first. If you second out, third, etc., etc.
Yeah, it's like being in line. Somebody's needed, the first person gets called, and you're number one. Something happens, now you got to go to work. And I mean, they can call you out for anything. It could be a train could have an accident and the crew needs to be relieved. It could be they ran out of time. It could be because you can only work so many hours. I mean, it could be anything. It could literally be that they just created an extra train. It's rare these days, but they could create an extra, and then you're needed. So boom, now you're working. I mean, you get your time and it's got a guaranteed pay for whatever. And as long as in most cases you don't lay off or too many times that you get to keep your guarantee. Depends on the railroad. Each railroad does that a little different, but the board itself works that way. You just work on call and you're just there for backup. When they need you, you're going. And sometimes it's cool, sometimes it sucks, but it's just the thing. You just have to do it.
And let's not be confused. You have a lot of short line railroads that have extra boards as well. So it's not just limited to Amtrak and Class Ones. There are a lot of short line railroads that have extra boards. Like for example, the Wheeling and Erie, the Wheeling and Erie, I should say. If I'm not mistaken, Georgia Central has an extra board. Georgia and Florida Railroad has an extra board. So, it's pretty much like it could be universal as far as these freight railroads and passenger railroads go. But, the extra board is just not limited to Class 1s.
Yeah. I mean, in most cases, a lot of us low seniority people start out. I mean, I've got some seniority, but I don't have more seniority than I did. Like, I was lucky when I came down south initially. I was able to hold a regular. Now on my out on that Mardi Gras, I'm not there anymore. I'm lower seniority, so I have to work the board. When I was in California, they used to joke around and say there was a 10-year extra board plan. Like when you hired, you was going to be on that board for at least 10 years. And they actually meant it. They're like, even the guy that I started with, he's still on the board now. Every once in a while, for a little while, those guys get kind of burned out and they'll go to the board so that, somebody else gets a turn at a regular and you can get it, for a little while. But for the most part, most new seniority starts on that extra board. In most cases, not all, but in most.
Yeah, because you can start off coming straight out of the school and go through your on-the-job training to be qualified and be forced to a job. And a lot of times that job you're getting forced to, it ain't pretty.
True, you usually get the job, though nobody won't. That's the case. Like when I was in Meridian, I chose that job, but they had to force a couple of engineers working with me because it was a 2-engineer job. You took 2 trips to Atlanta and 1 to New Orleans every other week. and that every other week, the days off suck. One week you had Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday off. The next you just had Wednesday. And a lot of guys didn't like that because they were like, dude, this sucks. I loved it, but I also took the job that nobody wants. That's usually how you get your regular. Choose one nobody wants, and then enough people retire or bounce out, and boom, now you're, the next up. So, I mean, it's just, it all depends, but it's not a bad gig. I mean, like now, I'm on the board right now. They can call me at any point in time today or tomorrow. Yesterday was my off day, so they got me from now to next Wednesday. They can call me for work. And even if they don't use me, I still get paid. So, I can't beat it.
All right. Okay, so this is the last part of the show, man. Your picture perfect run. As I said one time before, you get to choose the power, your set of power, the type of train you're pulling, subdivision you're running, time of the year, type of weather. What is your picture perfect run? Oh yeah, you can cross subdivisions, and what I mean by that, you can have a CSX train running on the Norfolk Southern Territory, for example.
I like a 42 in the lead, P42 in the lead, Charger as a second unit. I love having a Charger as a second unit. That thing is like, the 42s take a minute to get up to speed, but those Chargers are instant. So it's pushing until it gets up to speed, and it's good at what it does. Territory, I really liked running down to San Diego. The views were beautiful, and I mean, you just could not beat it. I kid you not. If you guys get time, just type in Surfliner San Diego run. There's a time lapse video. It's like 4 minutes long. It's beautiful. You'll see, and it is amazing. I mean, it rarely rains down there. They meant that it never rains in Southern California. So that equipment, that set, man, window open, just enjoying that ocean breeze as you roll. You can't beat it at all.
All right, my man. Well, it's been a pleasure having you on the show, Brian, man. I hope you guys enjoyed this episode, Thought of Notches number 4. Brian Smith, we got to do this again, brother.
Yeah, no problem. You just let me know, man. I got time. If I ain't here, I'll be at the beach.
Ain't nothing wrong with that, man. Enjoy your days off whenever you can get them.
That's right, bro. I appreciate it, man. Thanks for having me on your show. Hope I ain't bore everybody too much.
Hey, man, you gave some valuable information. Could you touch bases on something that a lot of people kind of didn't want to speak on, and that's fatalities?
Yeah.
I mean, it's a part of the game, an unfortunate part of the game. It's not necessarily of if it happens, but when it happens.
Yeah.
And it's a very unfortunate part of the game. But, a lot of railroaders, they get through it and they continue on their careers, and you have some who can't take it after the fact.
That's true, too.
All right. Well, again, brother, it's been great to have you on the show. And we got to do it again, as I said.
Likewise, man. Enjoy your day, bro.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, that was Throttle Notches episode number 4. Hey, it's going to be uploaded pretty soon. But as I said, this is Throttle Notches. You don't just watch us, you ride with the Throttle Notches. Y'all have a good night.
Amtrak 19 platform is clear. Let's depart Atlanta, Georgia. Restricted speed on time. Over. Amtrak 19, we got to approach the breaker Brookwood now. Track 1. Approach breaker Brookwood, track 1.
Donnie doing his thing. Catch him late night Sunday. Double stack, more running. Metro in the subway. I ain't talking about Washington State locked in for the